This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Cocktails up here feel just right. Is Cambria amazing? All right. Bring a date, your team, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com. See you on the roof.
This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
Welcome back to DOCUFILES. I'm Paige.
And I'm Natalie.
For next week, we are going to be watching on Netflix again, The Most Hated Man on the Internet. This week, of course, we are bringing forth a discussion about maternal instinct. And this documentary, I've probably said this every week or something, so I know I'm annoying, but I mean, what a doozy. I mean, this story is sad. The murderer is pathetic and calculated, all under this gross guise of being this like sweet Southwestern sweetheart who was beautiful and winning the hearts of most people around her. It was just an unbelievable, unimaginable series of events. The way that the victim was violated has me so angry. I can't even imagine how her family, who did participate in this documentary, could possibly be still feeling. And at the beginning of the documentary, one of the participants says how raw it all still feels, because there are multiple victims in different ways as well.
And it didn't happen that long ago. I really believe this is really one of the more shocking true crime stories I've come across in a long time. And I think what makes it shocking is there are so many layers to it, because at first glance, you see this story and it looks like it's about a woman who's desperate to have a baby. And then it quickly becomes something so much darker and, like I said, layered. You know, it's a web of deception built on a fake pregnancy, fabricated inheritance, manipulation that goes back months, maybe even years, and, you know, has multiple people being manipulated. And there's this woman at the center of everything who is pulling all the strings, trying to keep the people around her believing this fantasy that she's built for herself.
And the man she loves, Wade. What I found difficult in terms of watching this documentary, which again, can't imagine how difficult Reagan Hancock's family feels about this, is the why. We never understand what is wrong with Taylor to try to make sense of this. We begin the documentary learning a little bit about Taylor and this life that she started creating in her own mind, coming from oil money, which didn't turn out to be true at all, which you mentioned, fabricated inheritance, and the way she was able to get away with that. And this is probably the most feasible of all of her lies, is that, oh, my mom, my grandma, like they have the purse strings, but that someday she was going to just, become this millionaire, and they were just waiting and waiting and waiting on that particular day. But then, it was, I'm fighting with my mom, and she just made it so that it seemed to make sense why she had no access to this money. But then she and her guy, Wade, they're out there buying this beautiful plot of land in Oklahoma, which again, this is centered on the border of Texas and Oklahoma, called Pecan Point, and they were like renaming it Pecan Bend or something like that, because in one of the scenes from Christmas, they're like announcing this big purchase to everybody, and she's talking about 500 acres in Oklahoma called Pecan Point, and she goes, "It's called Pecan Bend now." So I don't know if that was her renaming it or what this was, but that was.
It wouldn't surprise me if she felt like she needed to rename it. She had to put her spin on everything.
Yeah, and maybe that's a thing too, when you buy 500 acres of well-known land in an area, right? Like people probably know it's got a name and everything. People in the area probably know, like, oh yeah, that's Pecan Point or whatever. So 500 beautiful acres that she was claiming that they were going to run the pecans, as she said, and just kind of like live this country life, which I think really tantalized Wade, who is also a victim in all of this, by the way, just not a victim of murder.
Let's talk about Wade a little bit. So
Please.
They met while out on the town, and upon his first meeting with Taylor, he realizes that she's pretty and she's rich.
And she's country.
That's something that his best friend says he was looking for. He was looking for someone to hold her own and be pretty to look at. With that in mind, it's no surprise that his best friend told him to marry her, despite any red flags he may have seen.
She was charming. Everybody Wade introduced her to, friends, family. Something Wade talks about that he loved, and his family talks about it as well, in terms of like what Wade was really appreciating about her, which you explain really well. But he goes specifically on to say, she could cook. She was taking care of the animals. Like he wanted somebody that was going to be running big land with him. Like that was this rodeo guy's dream, which by the way is just so Oklahoma. And I must also say, Mr. Wade, I do not appreciate the hog hunting. I don't like whatever that was. That was kind of disturbing to me too. So there's just like all these weird, like dark elements to like anything and everything surrounding this entire documentary. But to go back to it, yes, she, I don't want to say turned herself into, but probably exactly what he wanted. She at least knew. She had calculated what he wanted, what he needed, and what she needed to do to stay in this situation. She did already have kids of her own, about 2 of them. She's around 28, 29 at this time. They do blast her birthday on one of the documents in the documentary that I will.
Yeah, that they didn't
blur it
out
or anything. But we do know.
I mean, she's in prison, so you could probably look that up and it would be available.
Exactly. So. We don't need to blast it, but we do kind of know she's around 29-ish at the time, give or take. And a mom who I think was possibly looking for stability. Eventually, she paints a picture that warrants moving in with Wade. To me, it seemed as though, well, everybody loved her. It was kind of this quick U-Haul sort of situation where they're moving in kind of quick.
Yes, I think it was that situation where they were getting pretty serious pretty fast. And that was overlooked because she brought a lot of money with her, or supposedly. She had this large inheritance that she was supposed to be getting from her grandma eventually. And we're talking multiple millions of dollars. I think they at one point said $8 million. I think that's where we learn a little bit more about Wade. Like, obviously, I did mention his friend was saying that, Taylor was pretty and rich, and those were 2 things he was looking at in a partner. But I really feel like this highlights that he was greedy. And I don't think they hide it either in a lot of the family interviews. They talk about how that was alluring to him. And I mean, I don't blame him. He seems kind of easily manipulated. I don't mean that in a mean way, but he doesn't seem like the sharpest tool in the shed. And he sees a pretty girl who comes with a lot of money and sees a way to have a better life. And he holds on to it pretty tight.
He sees an end to the type of life he wanted. Tons of land. I mean, 500 acres, unless she was fibbing on how many acres Pecan Point was, but it is mentioned 500 acres.
Well, and we had the real estate broker interviewed in the documentary.
Yes.
So like it was a very expensive multi-million-dollar deal.
$4 million.
That was being, hopefully processed. And, we later learned that it was all a lie.
I really feel like when I hear, Wade might not have been the sharpest tool in the shed, I really feel like we were turning a blind eye to a lot of things on purpose as well, in terms of like, I'm just not going to even dive into that, because if I do, I'm not going to get this life that I want. I'm not going to get my land. I'm not going to get my hog business. I'm not going to, by business, they sold these wild hogs that he would hunt and catch and all of that. So that was just one of the things I think that was kind of a pastime of his. So this like allowed that. And they even talk about that the real estate individuals who were involved in this land sale, that he was very interested in the feral hog population. And so anyways, that's definitely part of what he was looking for. So I really do wonder, how willing he was to turn a blind eye. And it's also asked of him, Wade, do you love her? As things start to catch on, that Natalie and I will get a little deeper into as we progress here. But he is asked, do you love her? And he goes, well, I really care about her. And it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Why are we still with her then? Because there's all these crazy things going on that come to light.
And to me, when I saw that, it was pretty clear why they were together for the length of time that they were, is because she is very manipulative. And he seemed to be the type of individual, like we said, to see a life that he could be living. She had an answer for everything. And she was able to pull the wool over his eyes.
Yeah. And it's that whole thing of, do I have a reason not to believe her yet? Eventually,
a lot of people tried to convince him that she was lying on a number of things, and he refused to believe it because, again, she always had receipts, even if she was the one making those receipts.
That's right. And one of those receipts is in regards to a pregnancy that comes about. So Taylor is supposedly pregnant with Wade's child.
And this is very shortly after they meet, but things had been getting rocky for them. And so this was sort of an anchor baby, her way of putting her claws into Wade and keeping him in this situationship.
She comes up with this receipt from, I think, her previous pregnancy, and was able to utilize that to try to convince people that like, yes, no, like I really am, pregnant and still pregnant. I mean, she even goes so far as to do a maternity shoot.
I mean, she wore a fake baby bump. She staged ultrasound photos. She hosted a gender reveal. Like you said, she took maternity pictures. She made social media posts. She took this lie that most people probably wouldn't be able to sustain for more than a week and made it last 10 months, even though pregnancies are only 9, like 10 and a half.
This pregnancy was the catalyst, I believe, or so it seems, of Wade's family and friends starting to catch on that something's not right. This pregnancy's lasting too long, and some of these receipts are just feeling funky. And a call is made after one of these receipts is seen. And the clinic says, well, we don't give anything out like that. And she goes, okay.
Due to a HIPAA violation.
Well, no, so not because of HIPAA. And then she goes, I can't tell you anymore because of HIPAA, but what I will tell you is trust your instinct, meaning know that document isn't from us, but also trust your gut. Like that's all she could say. And the reason this clinic was even aware of Taylor was because they had been seeing her posting on social media. You got to love small towns. However that worked out. Natalie and I, as we were kind of discussing and getting ready to record, we were like, yeah.
Like, why were they even following each other? Who knows? But
and where was this? So, but regardless, they were seeing it. And guess what they knew? They knew that they had performed a hysterectomy on Taylor years before. It was after her second pregnancy, if I am correct. So they knew she can't be pregnant, but because of HIPAA, they also couldn't tell anybody, do anything, or warn anybody. And I do wonder where that line was crossed. Like, could Natalie, this clinic, have called her and been like, look, we're concerned about this, but I mean, is that even their role? I don't know. But of course, they immediately went to, how is she going to procure a child? So they continued to watch closely.
Yeah, they were monitoring the situation, and I think their hands were tied in terms of what they were able to do. But it was definitely a subject of conversation in that office. You know it. Like, they were following the post. They were wondering how she was going to get out of this situation. And they went so far as towards the end of Taylor's pregnancy, and that's a quote unquote pregnancy, they issued a pink alert at the local hospital, which essentially put hospital staff on alert that there was going to be a potential baby napping, baby kidnapping.
Because that was the scary thing. Again.
Yeah, no one thought that she was going to commit murder to cover up this fake pregnancy. They thought that if it got to the point of her completing, following through with this entire fake pregnancy, that she would perhaps steal a baby, which is also bad. But, they really, I think a lot of people didn't expect it to get as far as it did.
It goes back to this case being unimaginable, where this was the worst case, most horrific outcome possible, which, as we have now expressed, ends with murder of a pregnant young woman, Reagan Hancock, who Taylor befriended. So it's sickening to think that she knew for so long that that's what she was going to do. She met Reagan when she photographed her wedding, and Taylor charmed Reagan's family. They were like, oh my gosh, it felt like she was a bridesmaid.
One of the bridesmaids?
Yeah.
That was so bizarre.
That was so bizarre, but it just showed like she was just fitting in and adding joy at that time to the day, and, caused no sight for concern. Look, if there is one thing about me, it's that I hate waiting. Hold music, triggering. If it was a person, they would definitely be blocked. Earnin, on the other hand, would not be blocked. Earnin is an app, not a bank, that allows you to get up to $150 a day, up to $1,000 between paychecks. Tips are optional, and standard transfers take just 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers start at $3.99 and cap at $5.99. 5 million people are already using Earnin. Time just feels different when you're not waiting around to make moves. Getting paid twice doesn't make money scarce. It just feels that way. And with Earnin, it doesn't have to be like that. If you think about it, it is kind of odd that we have to wait to get the money that we've already earned, even though we live in a world where everything is instant access now. I don't know. Now that I've thought about it, I cannot unthink it. Download Earnin on the App Store or Google Play. It's spelled like earning money without the G. Type in The Murder Diaries under podcast when you sign up. It will really help our show. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers available for a fee. Tips are voluntary and don't affect the service. Available in select states. Terms and restrictions apply. Visit earnin.com for full details.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at Accenture.com/Spotify.
Welcome to a new era of baseball's great spectacle. The T-Mobile Home Run Derby, live on Netflix. The biggest sluggers in baseball put their talents to the test on All-Star Weekend. Raw power meets star power. Big swagger meets bigger slams. And you don't swing to make contact. You swing to make history. Watch the T-Mobile Home Run Derby live on Netflix, Monday, July 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
Honey, what are you listening to?
Mom!
Your teen might not share everything with you, but teens share everything with each other. And certain everyday behaviors, like sharing food, drinks, or kisses, could mean sharing bacteria that can cause meningococcal disease, known as meningitis. Although meningitis is uncommon, about 1 in 10 who develop it will die. Ask your teen's doctor about missing meningitis vaccinations. Learn more at meningitis.com. Vaccination may not protect all recipients. Sponsored by GSK.
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Sustain Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Sustain Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
It just shows that she found a way to insert herself in moments that weren't about her.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect example of her ability to be a chameleon in whatever situation she found herself in, because she was willing to lie to adapt to fit people's lives. Like, for example, one of her old coworkers is interviewed, and the coworker had lost a daughter. I believe her daughter was stillborn. Well, Reagan talks to that woman and bonds over losing her daughter, who was also stillborn. And it turns out, no, Reagan never had a stillborn daughter.
No.
But that was a way that she found herself being able to bond with this woman. And then, so that was the lengths that she was going to force these feelings, these relationships people had with her.
Yeah, she knew where to hit emotionally that was going to create not just a connection, but like an instant connection.
Yes.
That coworker almost...
Oh, in tears, talking about it. I can't imagine.
It appears as though she was victimized, but it's like this air of complete violation of her most vulnerable personal trauma being used against her to connect with her. And for what? And so it's just awful. Taylor just had no regard to anybody's feelings, how these lies she was telling are going to affect him. It was just all for her personal gain. And I think by the time she was with Wade, it started spiraling to an extent of, yeah, I'm going to feign buying 500 acres that I literally cannot afford and just let the contract fall because they came asking for that money. And she has this letter written by her representation that basically tells them stop asking for the money, And it's like, sir, this is a real estate transaction, for example. We need the money. With real estate, there's a lot of money that gets passed back and forth, money to make sure a deal's going to go through, then money to make the deal finalize. There's a lot, and you need to be at the ready to make this money land in the account. It needs to land it. And instead of doing that, the real estate brokerage is getting threatening letters, stop talking to my client. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, you're asking personal questions, this is unacceptable. And it turns out that Taylor was impersonating a fake uncle that she made.
Mm-hmm.
She was impersonating bank employees. She was, playing a lot of different roles under a lot of different aliases.
It just shows she was starting to get out of control with all these lies beyond her previous, I'm just going to pretend I had lost a child as well, which is awful, but harder to worry about receipts and proof. Whereas this is dude, where's the money? Or but
it lasted long enough where, the people that were involved in the transaction felt like it was a legitimate offer and, transaction. Mm-hmm. So when it finally fell through, they were surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Hearing that part of the story did remind me of Catfish. Did you remember we just covered that one on DOCUFILES? The woman who catfishes Neve Schulman, she invents multiple people and multiple lives and profiles on social media. Now, obviously, that was a little bit more innocent, and the source of her making those profiles was more boredom and wanting an escape from her reality, which was a very difficult reality for her to be in.
Right. And that pull of wanting to feel wanted and appreciated.
But like Taylor, on the other hand, she's doing sort of the same thing, but her intentions are far more sinister.
I still wonder, and I don't remember how much the documentary says about this or not, but what could she have possibly said to Wade to make it make sense that deal was falling through? Because that's a huge promise to this man she loves. And she's providing this lifestyle that he's very attracted to. And then all of a sudden it just doesn't come to fruition. I'm forgetting exactly what the documentary said, but I cannot imagine any of that it was going over well or easy to continue to keep up appearances for her. Again, I think she's starting to like get outside her wheelhouse of ability.
You know what it was? When that real estate deal officially started breaking down, that's when the pregnancy came in. And so
exactly
when he started seeing the cracks in her story, she completely abandoned the real estate venture that she had. And all of a sudden she was pregnant. And how can you say anything against the future mother of your child? But that doesn't mean like the other people in their lives weren't seeing red flags and the cracks starting to appear, because around that time that the real estate deal was happening, they had bought, Wade and Taylor had bought Wade's mom a brand new car. They posted about it on Facebook. It was a big deal. And then that car got repoed under the guise of, oh, there's been a recall. We're going to get it fixed. No, it was repossessed because payments weren't being made. And that's when a light went off in his mother's head. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, something is not adding up. So when that happened, then the real estate deal fell through. And then all of a sudden Taylor's pregnant. That mom was starting to feel concerned for her son.
And that's why that phone call was made to the clinic as well. And that is, and I told you guys we were going to get to, you know, these things that were unfolding that warranted that phone call to the clinic. Well, this is it. She's also concerned, this loved one of Wade's, and makes that phone call, to which, you know, they tell her, you know, trust your gut, hint, hint. So then the pregnancy drags on and on. So they're already like, oh, this pregnancy is like so totally fake. And then it just dragged on and on and on.
It kept dragging on, and everyone involved was thinking, okay, like, is this going to be the moment she's exposed? Is this going to be the moment she's exposed? And Taylor doubled down. She was firm in her decision to take this pregnancy to full term and possibly figure it out when she got to the end of it, because I really don't think that she thought everything through. I think she decided that she was going to say she was pregnant, and that was going to be in order to get Wade back on her side. I don't think she fully thought through, okay, what am I going to do when it comes to the end of this? Like, maybe at one point she thought she could pretend to have a miscarriage or a pregnancy loss. But by the time the family and friends started questioning the reality of this pregnancy, that's when she doubled down and was like, no, I'm doing this.
Right.
And
she had to have the pregnancy go full term, which she went beyond full term. It was like 10 months.
More than 10 months. I think it was like 10 and a half months. And she just said, oh, my family carries along or something like that.
I had to explain to my husband, who often watches these in horror with me. I had to explain to him, you need to know a doctor will never, in, 2020 is when all this is taking place. A doctor would never let you go that long. They barely let you go 41, 42 weeks now.
I mean, they won't let you go beyond that. And a lot of people will tell you that pregnancy that goes that far is almost more dangerous than having a pregnancy that, the baby's born prematurely.
Wow.
But you did bring up the fact that this did happen in 2020 during the pandemic. And that sort of helped her in her
endeavors.
Yes, it did, because he was not allowed to go to any of the appointments. Not that she was actually having appointments, but she would say that she was. And so he didn't actually get to hear the heartbeat. He didn't get to see her be ultrasound. He didn't get to see the ultrasounds happen. And so he's never been through a pregnancy with another partner. I wouldn't doubt if this was his first girlfriend ever. He just had no idea how pregnancy and the monitoring of a pregnancy works. So he just took her word for it because she had been through it twice before with 2 children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she sort of knew what to expect in pregnancy and continued down that path until she isolated that Reagan Hancock's baby was going to be hers. And again, this is what makes me so sick. And you know how your mind just starts going? It's like, I wonder how early on in Reagan's pregnancy did she decide, like, I'm going to be friend and I'm going to kill Reagan and I'm going to take that baby, in which she did on October 9th of 2020.
This is really where things start getting super sensitive in terms of this case, because there are a lot of questions that we'll never know the answers to, that her family will never know the answers to. And it's scary to think that Reagan thought Taylor was her friend, invited her into her home multiple times towards the end of her pregnancy. And they thought they were sharing a moment together, both being pregnant together, sharing this journey to motherhood that should have been so special. And instead, Taylor was a predator.
Predator is so accurate, possibly a little too nice, but accurate. I find it very interesting too that, and I guess this is just context and the way my brain works, but for context, Reagan and Taylor were about 8 years apart, almost exactly. So I'm sure that, Reagan probably looked up to Taylor in many ways as someone who was already a mom. You mentioned being pregnant together. I'm sure that she did look up to her in so many ways. So it's just another way that this becomes so sick and twisted, and how Taylor was that predator that you mentioned.
With all of that in mind, that's what makes this even more sad, is that she wasn't just some random person targeting Reagan. She was a person that Reagan felt comfortable with, that they were friendly, that she was friendly with. Her family knew her. No one expects someone like that to fetally abduct your unborn child. It was the last thing on her mind. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about fetal abductions while discussing this case. So just a few facts for those listening. It is rare, but it does happen across the US and across the world. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children gives a few statistics about fetal abduction. So on their website, it says, since 1974, there have been 24 fetal abduction cases reported. 13 of the fetuses survived, 11 died. 22 mothers died, 2 survived. And one of those mothers, who is a dear friend of ours in the podcast, Angelique Robledo, did share her story on the podcast. And if you're listening to this, wanting to hear what it's like from a survivor's perspective, please go listen to that episode. It would shine a light on the complex emotions of everything that a survivor of this sort of situation has experienced.
Watching Angelique grow in strength and advocacy and on social media by empowering herself with her story has been a true honor. And we're so grateful that she told her story on the Murder Diaries. So yes, definitely check out her episode with us. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't also mention the most horrifying piece of information about maternal mortality, which is the biggest leading cause of maternal mortality in the US for pregnant women is homicide. That is astounding, and we need better for pregnant people. This is ridiculous.
Not to center this on myself and my own pregnancy, but that is something that crossed my mind a lot when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
I was very aware of how vulnerable I was because I wasn't physically able to do a lot that I had been when I wasn't pregnant. I was, very obviously pregnant. It wasn't something you could hide. I was aware of it when I would be at a store and people would say, "Oh, how many months are you?" I would always lie and say I would say less because I wouldn't want them to like follow me to my car or something. You know what I mean? Like you just never know. And it's sad that, this is a reality in today's world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, obviously with homicide being the leading cause of maternal mortality for pregnant people, it isn't just even the fetal abduction as this case discusses, but like you mentioned, like I can't move as easily and freely or comfortably. Like there are just so many factors and reasons why they might be targeted while pregnant.
You're very vulnerable and you're not only caring for yourself and your well-being, but you have to take into consideration, all right, there is this little baby that's depending on me.
Mm-hmm.
And it is scary to know that you could possibly be in a situation like this. And so that's why I really encourage everyone to go listen to Angelique's episode, because you really will get a sense of what it was like to be in her head at this very vulnerable moment and what she had to do to survive.
Those of you who are listening who may be pregnant, we obviously wish nothing but safety and well-being for you. And we hope we're not instilling fear, but instead awareness and knowledge, because knowledge is power. As we wrap up, let's bring it back to the docu.
Once Taylor arrived at the hospital with an unresponsive newborn baby, it was very clear that the blood on her wasn't hers and the baby wasn't hers. After a few quick tests, they were able to decipher that she had no discernible HCG, which is the pregnancy hormone. She had a physical exam by an OBGYN. There was no evidence that she had given birth recently.
His response was interesting. Not interesting.
Oh, he was pissed.
But he was mad.
Pissed.
He's like, she did not have a baby. And I love nothing more than a Southern nurse. They were locked and loaded and ready. They were not going to let Taylor out of that door. I do want to remind listeners, she was first responded to by an officer on the side of the road. She had an unresponsive baby, umbilical cord attached on her lap. She did have blood on her. She claims that she had just given birth. And as Natalie so well explained, she ends up at the hospital with these pelvic exams, ultrasounds, physical exams that they knew she did not have a baby.
It's not soon after that she ends up in handcuffs to the bed. They're trying to figure out, okay, well, if you didn't have the baby, who had the baby?
Yep.
And across town, Reagan's family makes the horrific discovery that she has been murdered. And the pieces fall together pretty quickly after that. Reagan is arrested. She's charged with capital murder, murder and kidnapping, and she's eventually found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to death in November of 2022. She's actually the youngest person on death row in her area.
Wow. There is just no silver lining. You know, my optimistic self always tries to find that, but there just isn't one. Family has lost the beautiful baby Reagan was bringing into this world that she so wanted, and didn't get to survive. And Taylor is on death row. So she may very well be executed. None of this was done for any purpose, any greater good. It's just a sick, sad, horrific, and pathetic on Taylor's side case.
That's why this documentary really left me feeling like I wish I hadn't watched it, to be honest, with you and our listeners. I felt like it just was like, we watch a lot of dark things. We talk about a lot of dark things, but it just was so senseless, so senseless and horrific and terrifying. I wish I hadn't seen it. If you haven't seen it and you did listen to this episode, maybe have this episode be enough for you. Maybe don't go watch it. Save yourself, those images in your mind.
And may Reagan Hancock's memory forever be a blessing. You know where to find us until our next episode at the Murder Diaries Pod on social media. Make sure to follow us on YouTube. I am going to be trying eventually to get DOCUFILES episodes edited and up there as soon as I can.
And don't forget our schedule. Mondays, we have Tragic Hollywood. Tuesdays, DOCUFILES. And Thursdays, a true crime case that needs your attention. Thanks for being here.
Bye. Look, if there is one thing about me, it's that I hate waiting. Hold music, triggering. If it was a person, they would definitely be blocked. Earnin, on the other hand, would not be blocked. Earnin is an app, not a bank, that allows you to get up to $150 a day, up to $1,000 between paychecks. Tips are optional, and standard transfers take just 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers start at $3.99 and cap at $5.99. 5 million people are already using Earnin. Time just feels different when you're not waiting around to make moves. Getting paid twice doesn't make money scarce. It just feels that way. And with Earnin, it doesn't have to be like that. If you think about it, it is kind of odd that we have to wait to get the money that we've already earned, even though we live in a world where everything is instant access now. I don't know. Now that I've thought about it, I cannot unthink it. Download Earnin on the App Store or Google Play. It's spelled like earning money without the G. Type in the Murder Diaries under podcast when you sign up. It will really help our show. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors. Standard cash outs take 1 to 2 business days with no mandatory fees. Expedited transfers available for a fee. Tips are voluntary and don't affect the service. Available in select states. Terms and restrictions apply. Visit earnin.com for full details.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Queen Carvania stood haloed by the morning sun. An army hung on her every word.
My champions, I have sold my chariot on Carvana. 'Twas a lovely SUV, an inexplicably queenly offer. They're even coming to the castle to collect it. Tonight, we feast! An offer you can feast on. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Are you one of those media strategy people clicking through slides, scrolling spreadsheets? Yes? Good. This is for you. Because on Spotify, there's an audience that's different, locked in, loyal, invested. They're called fans. Fans don't just listen to music, they feel seen by it, like it belongs to them. So when your brand shows up on Spotify, that's who you're talking to. And you're right next to artists like me, Lizzo. So, are you ready to talk to fans? Spotify advertising. You're among fans.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.